Fucking brother. And then Chris Dodd, who was also known for like drinking and carousing, and noted sexist and racist Strom Thurmond.
Ugh.
It is some bullshit. Go back and watch this testimony. It'll make your blood boil. It's so gross. And she is so poised.
Yeah.
And, once again, I think about how like people will say women are too emotional to be president or all this stuff. Anita Hill, Hillary Clinton, what's her first name? Blasey Ford.
Oh, Christine.
Christine Blasey Ford. Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who testified against Brett Kavanaugh. All these women so poised. So like just keep their shit together. Do not crack under pressure. Answer like hours and hours and hours of questions.
Invasive questions.
And people like Thomas and fucking people like Trump or Brett Kavanaugh lose their shit when you dare to question them.
Anger is an emotion. Believe it or not, people. It is an emotion. Please.
So she answers all their questions, and she testifies that Clarence Thomas repeatedly asked her out, and demanded reasons for why she would turn him down. Like, she doesn't need to give reasons. She thinks you're a fucking creep. That's why. But she said she turned him down. And these are quotes from her testimony. She said, "I thought by saying no and explaining my reasons that my employer would abandon his social suggestions. However, to my regret," I love how she speaks. "In the following weeks, he continued to ask me out on several occasions. He pressed me to justify my reasons for saying no to him. And that these things kept taking place in her office or his. So they weren't heard by other people.
Nobody could see it."
Yeah. She testified that Thomas just loved to talk about sex at work. He would often call her into his office and he would talk about like all the pornos he was watching. One of them in particular starred someone named Long Dong Silver, which, y'all, you can't even believe how many jokes we had to listen to about Long Dong Silver back in the 90s.
Johnny Carson and David Letterman and yeah.
Yes. And he would just talk about like the most awful stuff, like the pornos he would watch about. It would be like women having sex with animals, group sex, rape scenes, all this stuff with a female employee who reports to him that he is consistently trying to pressure into dating him.
And that's awful. A polite verb, really.
Yes. And he would brag about what a great lover he is. And then, which is always
the hallmark of not a great lover.
Yeah, right. It's, he's a selfish prick who comes too soon. And then, and then there's this very famous thing about like he went into his office and he came out with a can of Coke and he asked who put a pubic hair on it. I don't understand what that joke was supposed to be. I even Googled it because I was like, what's the joke? I don't get it. But he's fucking gross is my point.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is we could do a whole episode about just this hearing because it's how she got fucked over. She got fucked over. And a few other women also filed statements, but they did not testify. So one of them was Angela Wright, and she worked as a public affairs director at the EEOC. This was in 1984. And she also said that one time she walked into like a meeting with Thomas and he asked her, "What size are your breasts?" Ugh. And this story was confirmed by like other people who work there. It wasn't like he said, she said, which we believe women when they tell these stories. Another woman was Sukari Hardnett. She worked as Thomas's special assistant at the EEOC during 85 and 86. And she said, and this is a quote, "If you were young, black, female, and reasonably attractive, you knew full well you were being inspected and auditioned as a female. Women know that there are sexual dimensions to the attention they are receiving, and there was never any doubt that the dimension in Clarence Thomas's office, about that dimension in Clarence Thomas's office. They all knew it.
Well, because we do all know it. We're not stupid. I mean, I always like the old hack comedians joke is like, women don't know how horny men are. You know, you have no idea. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah,
like, we start getting hit on when we're 12. You know what I mean?
I just, we've talked about this before on the show. Like, it's just so fucking frustrating. These women are just trying to do their jobs.
Just want to do their jobs.
They just want to work. And by the way, if you go back and if you watch the Anita documentary or any of the footage on YouTube or anything, sexual harassment was not discussed. It was just not a thing. And so many of the men on this committee were like, what's the big deal? Mm-hmm. It's really shitty. So she testifies. These other women submit their statements. Then Clarence Thomas does his, rebuttal or whatever. And he accuses the committee of engineering a, quote, high-tech lynching. Mm. And I just wrote, oh, do fuck off, Clarence Thomas. Like,
high-tech?
Yeah, high-tech lynching.
Oh, wow, we're all in chairs with cameras.
Yeah.
How high-tech.
He made it all about race, and it wasn't about race. It's how you're a gross, sexually harassing motherfucker. Like, It has nothing to do with the fact that you're black.
And also no experience. No real experience in being a judge.
Yeah, it sucks. It sucks, And then in his 2007 memoir, Clarence Thomas called Anita Hill a tool of liberal activists, outraged because he did not fit their idea of what an African-American should believe.
Sure, Jan.
The Senate narrowly confirmed him. It was a vote of 52 to 48. At one point, Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginni Thomas, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, called Anita Hill and left a message on her answering machine asking for an apology. It's time for you to apologize for what you said about my husband. And Anita Hill's like, you can fuck all the way off.
Yeah. Oh my God.
She's such an asshole. Like I said, we're going to talk about her. She's a fucking prick. But Anita Hill's a fucking hero, is what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Once again, like, why would women make this stuff up?
The long duck dong, or not long duck dong. It's the long dong. That's the 16 candles. Sorry.
I almost said long duck dong, by the way. I had to be so careful.
Such a creepy movie now. Like the movie that you saw 1,000 times when you were young. Yes. So Biden was also really creepy asking her questions.
Yeah, they all were.
Yeah.
They all were. And they didn't understand.
Right. It's their privilege.
Because they're super privileged. It's like, well, if you didn't like it, why didn't you just leave?
You're a lady person around a bunch of men. What do you want them to do?
Yeah.
Or my favorite is people are like, where do people meet? We're always at work. I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. It's not a nightclub, okay? There's difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like, let's say he liked her and he genuinely liked her or something, and he asked her out and she said, no, that's it, man. Just fucking move on.
No is a perfect, solid answer. Yeah. It's a complete answer.
She doesn't owe you a fucking term paper for why she doesn't want to go out with you, asshole.
It's the Herb Tarlick thing from WKRP. Remember Herb? God bless him.
Oh my God, Herb Tarlick.
Herb Tarlick was hilarious, but if you watch it now, it's like he just harasses Jennifer over and over again.
We're talking about WKRP.
WKRP in Cincinnati. He was a married man. It's one of the best shows ever. One of the funniest shows ever. But yeah, it's the whole comedy was that he just hit on her all the time, even though he was a married man.
Yeah,
with kids in a leisure suit.
Yeah, and she was always like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye. She'd just shoo him away. She didn't seem very bothered by it. It certainly didn't impact her job, but yes, he shouldn't be doing that. So years later, a former girlfriend of Clarence Thomas started talking to the press. So her name is Lillian McEwen, and she was a former assistant U.S. attorney, and she had dated Thomas for years. She was never asked to.
I'm sorry. I was just like, why? Find him. There's nothing appealing about the man.
No.
I mean,
I don't get it.
No,
I don't get it. she was never asked to testify because they wanted people who worked with him.
Yeah, I get that.
And she didn't work with him, but she had dated him. And she said that Anita Hill's allegations sounded very much like the man she knew. She said that, and this is a quote, he was always actively watching the women he worked with to see if they could be potential partners. It was a hobby of his. She said that he would often tell her about the women he encountered at work. He would talk about their breasts with her.
Oh, what a swell guy.
I know. He must have been a delight to go out with. I love it when men I'm dating talk about
the titties of the other women in their office.
Exactly. What a fucking asshole. Oh my, I would throw a fucking drink in his face.
Of course.
She said the instance at work where he asked the woman like what her bra size was, he told her about that. Like, it's something that he did.
He was proud of it.
Yeah. And she said that he was obsessed with porn and that he loved to talk about what he was watching.
And there's nothing more interesting than listening to people talk about the porn that they're into.
Interesting. Such a creep.
That's appropriate anywhere.
Yeah. So in 1999, this is after he is now a sitting Supreme Court justice, attorney Moira Smith was invited to this dinner at her boss's house in Northern Virginia. And Clarence Thomas was going to be there. And she was like really excited to meet him. And she said that he groped her while she was sitting next to him at a table and he was groping her. And then she was like, I'm going to move to another table. And he like groped her again. And he's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. And like went and sat somewhere else, and it just, once again, like we have a serial sexual harasser who clearly is a misogynist. And then we have like a Brett Kavanaugh, who's like a serial sexual assaulter, and they're on the Supreme Court and making big decisions that impact everyone, but in particular harm women, and that totally bites. So I don't want to go through like every case that Clarence Thomas decided on the Supreme Court, because that would be a really long episode. But I'm going to just do a few highlights to show you how much he fucking sucks. So he always votes against reproductive choice. Mm-hmm. He always sides with anti-abortion. He joined the majority decision in Burwell versus Hobby Lobby. By the way, every time I see a Hobby Lobby, I flip it off. And that's the one where the employer said they religiously object to covering women's birth control.
It's a major employer. It's a retail outlet. If you don't know what that is, that's where people get their, if you have a hobby, they've got a lobby for you, but they have everything. They have yarn and knitting needles and scrapbook shit. And that's where you buy it on the cheap. You buy large amounts of it. It's a big retail operation. So most places offer, if you work 40 hours or more, you get healthcare. That's how America works.
Because we're the worst. We're the worst.
America, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah.
And some people are like, well, I have to be able to be okay with the choices that my employees make with their bodies, meaning birth control pills.
Right. They'll cover Viagra, by the way, but not birth control.
And they don't want to give maternity leave or paternity leave, God forbid. But they don't want to subsidize. It's very frustrating as a woman.
It's very, very frustrating. He has voted to weaken equal pay protections.
The guy from the EEOC?
Yes.
How ironic.
I know. He compared the argument for affirmative action to the argument for slavery, and he has voted against improving like racial integration in schools.
Wow.
Right? Here, it's going to get worse. So Thomas casts the fifth vote. This is his key vote in kind of redefining what sexual harassment means in the workplace. So in a 5-4 decision, there was this case. It was Vance versus Ball State University. LOL, Ball State.
Balls.
Basically, it changes the definition of who counts as a supervisor in a harassment case. So
I'm going to beat my head against this table.
I know. So the majority decision said that a person's boss counts as a quote unquote